Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Brittany and I've been living abroad for honestly a pretty big chunk of my adult life. I've been living in London for the past 2 years, but in total I've spent about the last 8 years living abroad in places like China, Vietnam, Prague, and then just months and months on months of backpacking around different countries. So safe to say living outside of the US has been my normal for quite a long time now, and now I'm back. I'm living in the US again, and don't get me wrong, it feels really nice. It feels familiar, it feels comfortable, it feels like home in a lot of ways, obviously because it is. But at the exact same time, it also feels a little bit strange. Like I'm in a place that I know really well, but I also kind of don't recognize it anymore. And that's what today's video is about. It's the reverse culture shocks I've experienced moving back to the US after living abroad for so long. Some of these are funny, some of these are a little bit frustrating, and some are honestly just so fascinating. And make sure you stick around to the end because the last one is something I genuinely forgot about and it really will shock you. Okay, so we have to start with the obvious one. Everything is just bigger. The cars are bigger, the roads are wider, the highways are just massive. Like everything is just scaled up in a way that you don't really notice until you leave the US and then come back. When I was living in London, you'd see these little tiny cars, mostly hatchbacks everywhere, just kind of squeezing through narrow streets, parking in spaces that literally would not exist here in the US. And now I'm back and I'm like, why is every car just the size of a small tank? Even just driving down the road, everything feels so spread out, so oversized. And actually it has been super helpful to adjust back to the driving culture because I was a little bit nervous. I haven't driven in a very long time, but when I drove in the UK, which was only a few times because I really was just too stressed out, I just felt so overwhelmed by how small everything was and how little room for error you have. But here, since everything is more spread out, I feel like I can breathe on the road, and it's just made the adjustment back to driving culture a little bit easier, which leads me directly to my next point. This next one is probably the biggest one for me personally, and that's that you have to drive everywhere, as I kind of just talked about. One of the main reasons I originally wanted to move abroad, especially to Europe, was because of the walking culture. I love that you could just walk everywhere, or at least walk to a train, a bus, a metro, something that would just take you where you wanted to go, but you were walking a lot in between that. And without even trying, you're just naturally more active in that lifestyle. You're healthier without even thinking about it because movement is just built into your daily life. And now being back in the US, you really do have to go out of your way to walk and kind of maintain that healthier lifestyle. Everything requires a car. And I will say, this is where it gets a bit contradictory for me, because if you watch one of my recent videos about what I love about living back in the US, you'll know that I said I actually do love driving again. And I do. Now that I'm a mom, it's just so much easier. It's so much more convenient. My lifestyle has changed a lot, and having a car makes that way more convenient. But at the same time, it still is a reverse culture shock because after years of living in a walking society, it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that even doing something small like grabbing a coffee or running a quick errand means that you have to get in the car, drive somewhere, park, walk in. It's just a completely different way of living. Another one that hit me immediately is tipping. After living in places where tipping either doesn't exist or it is very minimal, coming back to the US where tipping is expected literally everywhere is definitely a shock. Restaurants, bars, coffee shops, and even some takeout places now, you're constantly being prompted to tip. And it's not just like a small tip either. It's 18%, 20%, sometimes 25%. The worst thing is when you order something on an iPad screen that you're gonna have to walk up to the counter and pick up your coffee, food, whatever it is. So they're not waiting on you. They're not bringing the food to you. They're just making the food and calling out the number, and they flip that iPad around and they always ask you to include a tip, and it automatically is selected on the highest percentage. I'm like, what am I even tipping for? I'm so confused. You kind of just forget that that is part of the culture here until you come back and you're like, oh, right, that's a whole thing here. And that ties directly into my next point, which is servers checking on you constantly. In the US, servers are working for tips, right? Like I just said. So they're very attentive. They're coming over, they're checking on you, asking how everything is, refilling your drinks, making sure you're okay. And again, I completely understand why they want the tips. But if you've gotten used to dining abroad, it can feel a little bit intrusive at first because in most other countries, you're pretty much just left alone once you sit down. You order, your food comes, and then you just enjoy your meal. No interruptions. If you need something, you kind of just wave or you call your server over. They aren't trying to rush you out. They don't care about a high turnover of tables to try to get more people, aka more tips, into their pocket. So you just feel a little bit more relaxed, in my opinion. So coming back to the US where someone is just constantly checking on you multiple times throughout your meal, I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, this is very involved. Another one that I find really interesting is small talk with strangers. Americans love small talk, and I don't think you realize how much until you leave and then you come back. In a lot of other countries, interactions are very transactional. You go in, you order something, you pay, you leave. That's it. But in the US, people talk, and sometimes it's very personal talk. Like, I recently had this experience where I went to do an Amazon return at a UPS store nearby, and the woman helping me just completely just started opening up, telling me about she just found out she's gonna be a grandma. She's so excited, but she's also a little bit nervous because her daughter is so young, and her daughter thought she was gonna be mad at her because she was so young and she wasn't married and all these things. And she just went into even more personal detail than that. Obviously, I won't share that online. And I just remember standing there thinking like, wow, okay, I know a lot about this person. And in the UK, or really anywhere else I've lived in the world, I would not know that much about someone who's helping me with an Amazon return. It's just such an American thing, and it takes a little bit of getting used to again. A smaller one, but still something you have to get used to again, is sales tax. Prices don't include tax here, so you'll see something listed as $9.99, and then you'll go to pay and it's like $10.82, and you're like, wait, what? After living abroad, where the price you see is the price that you pay, it down to the exact cent because the tax is already built into that price. Coming back to the US, where tax gets added on at the end, is definitely something that you just have to readjust your brain to. Another big one is portion sizes. The portions here are honestly insane. Meals are easily 2 to 3 times bigger compared to what you'd get in a lot of other countries. And again, not necessarily a bad thing. You can take leftovers home, you get more for your money, but it definitely is shocking when you first come back. You order something thinking it's gonna be a completely normal portion according to the rest of the world, and then it arrives and you're like, whoa, that could feed like 2 to 3 people, which would have been awesome when I was pregnant back in the UK and ordering like 2 meals anyways for myself, but now it's not really necessary. Then there's how spread out everything is, and if you watch my recent video where I revealed where we moved in the US, you'll know that we ended up in the suburbs outside of Austin, Texas. And when I tell you things are spread out, they are really spread out. Pretty much any store I need to get to is about a 15-minute drive. Grocery store, Target, coffee shop, everything. You've got suburbs, strip malls, big parking lots. It's just a completely different setup compared to living in a city like London, where everything is so close together and easily accessible. Another one that surprised me more than I expected is how strict ID checks are. You get ID'd for everything when it comes to alcohol. Grocery stores, restaurants, wherever you're getting carded, even if you are clearly not anywhere near 21. Like, I am very clearly nowhere near 21 years old, and I still get asked every single time. And it's one of those things where you have to get used to carrying your wallet again, because abroad I just never carried a wallet. I didn't need to. I was never asked to prove my age or anything. So now being back in the US, I'm like, okay, I need my driver's license, not just for driving, but also for anything involving alcohol. So I always have to carry it with me. And finally, the last one, the one that I said would shock you, is gun culture visibility. And this is very state dependent, so just keep that in mind. But this has definitely been a shock. Back where I'm from in California, this isn't really something that you think about. Yes, guns are legal, but open carry is not. So you don't really see it as a part of your day-to-day awareness. But now that we are in Texas and the rules are very different here, open carry is very much a thing. So you will walk into certain restaurants or stores, and right there at the front of the store, there will be a sign saying something like, no open carry allowed, or whatever. And you're just like, oh, right. Like, people can just carry guns here, like in their pocket or in their purse or whatever. And it's just one of those things that you completely forget about after you've been living in other countries for so long, because in most places around the world, that just isn't even a part of everyday life. So coming back and being reminded of it definitely makes you kind of pause for a second. So yeah, those are some of the biggest reverse culture shocks I've experienced moving back to the US after living abroad for so long. And it is funny because, like I said at the beginning, it feels so good to be back. It feels comfortable, it feels familiar, it feels like home. But at the same time, there are all these little things that just kind of make you realize you've changed, your perspective has changed, your habits have changed. And even though this is home, it almost feels new again. And if you've ever lived abroad and then moved back home, I would love to hear what your biggest reverse culture shock was. Let me know in the comments. Now let's take a look at why we decided to leave the UK and move back to the US in the first place.